Hello, thanks for watching. It's Sunday the 10th of March 2019. Springtime just about starts in the States and Canada because the clocks go forward today everywhere in the States and Canada except parts of Arizona and Hawaii. So do bear that in mind as I go through the times. 7:09 a.m. UTC today, the moon entered Taurus, and that is a real nice change actually because we have had that Aries influence. We've perhaps all been a little bit too strict on ourselves. I think more strict on ourselves than strict with others last week because it's been Mercury retrograde and still is. But there's some good news about that as we go forward through next week. And this is a look at next week's astrology, really. A bit of a look ahead. So Taurus moon today on, let me see, Tuesday the 12th at 15:47 UTC. We get a Gemini moon, and there's been something like, let me see, about a 6-hour void before that, as far as I can see. So it's quite a long void, of course. Tuesday morning UK time is going to be kind of not a great time for getting ahead, getting forward with anything. Not a bad time in any sense, but we come up to Gemini then. We've got the twins. It's a happy influence, but it is a bit scattered. So who knows exactly which way things will go. I just wouldn't worry too much about it if plans aren't working the way you hope they will on Tuesday, because that's just the Gemini thing. Believe it or not, under the surface things are going quite well because wherever we're being scattered to and taken to is somewhere we need to be thinking, somewhere we need to put our mind. Half moon, 50% full. First quarter comes up on the 14th, Thursday the 14th, and that's 10:26 a.m. UK time. There's then a void, of course, from 12:30 that day right through till 21:49. So that is a long void, of course. And then we get the moon in Cancer. Emotions go up. People's vulnerability or feeling that they're vulnerable goes up quite a bit, and because of that people can be quite touchy, so that's really worth thinking about. Not thinking about it too much because it's not exactly positive, but what is really positive then is when we get to next Sunday, we get a Leo moon. Time to be out there, time to get seen, time to make your plans, get your plans heard and make your feelings known. I think that's the best way to put it. So that's next week in terms of the main astrological movements that we think about all the time. But it's also an interesting week because although Mercury is retrograde, and we are really into the Mercury retrograde phase now, the Mercury retrograde intensified phase actually ended yesterday. So it's slightly less intense now, but it's still very much a thing. This actually goes on until, let me see, 2 weeks today, Sunday the 24th, then it goes intense again, but only for 4 days through to the 27th, and on the 28th, Mercury stations direct, and that whole side of things starts getting better. But don't fear Mercury retrograde, folks. It brings lessons, that's all it brings. And if you've had a bad time in previous Mercury retrogrades, the chances are you've learned the lessons of that. And it'll always be a little bit different. It's like karma, you know, the lessons that you need come to you. The ones that you don't need, don't. Also, this isn't just me, it happened to a few people I know. A few of us had a big Mercury retrograde experience about a week before it started. Probably not entirely Mercury retrograde, but I'm sure that would have been because Mercury retrograde was an applying aspect, was about to come up and happen. Anyway, next week, March 11th to 17th, behind the scenes, there's a trine and a forward shift for Saturn. There's some good aspects for Mercury as well. Could actually be quite a good week for communication. Saturn, right, is in Capricorn, has been since 2018 and will be until 2020. And this actually creates quite a positive view of Saturn. A positive side to Saturn really comes out. And on, let me see, Thursday, March the 14th, that good version of Saturn is trine Mars. That's only going to happen twice this year, but it's really positive the way things line up at the moment because Mars and Saturn are both very productive and they're both Earth signs. So it's great in terms of getting things done, physical health, kind of career objectives, career goals, things like that are really worth thinking about next week. And I don't usually say that in a Mercury retrograde, but this is a bit of a special one. Now, there are 3 minor alignments with Mercury later in the week, which ought to make communication a lot better. And this really doesn't happen until Friday, March the 15th. tendency to only see the bright side of things, which is really positive. So I'm sure we'll actually all have a bit more positivity in our lives by next Friday the 15th, because Mercury squares Jupiter, and Jupiter, the great gas giant, is kind of happy-go-lucky the way it lines up. So that's looking pretty good. Then Mercury sextiles Pluto on Saturday, the March the 16th, the next day, and that's going to create a deep sort of depth of thinking, people more curious about what lies beneath the surface. But it is great in terms of actually getting things done, because we find out some of what's beneath the surface when we do that, and it makes it easier to have that forward motion to keep things going that way. And then next Sunday, 1 week today, Mercury sextile Mars, and that's a positive one again, because really, communications speed up, actually get better, even though it's Mercury retrograde. And, you know, Mercury retrograde might yet have the last laugh. I'm not going to say everything's perfect, because nothing ever is. But next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, really positive in terms of communication. And if you really want to do some important communications this week, I would say next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's going to be pretty good on Thursday as well. I've lost it, yeah. Thursday, March the 14th. Because of that Saturn trine Mars situation. Very productive, all about getting things done, really positive. So let's take a look down today's actual, what's happening today, Sunday, March the 10th. The Sun is sextile Pluto, time to dig deep. People want to investigate things, and people want things whiter than white, purer than white. Really quite difficult. That's not going to go so easily, but we do get people sharing power a bit and being a bit more open in that sense. The moon right this minute square Venus, so this gives an emotional charge to social interactions. We get decisions and choices being made based on feelings. It's touchy-feely. It's also a kind of, they're saying like femininity and feminine issues predominate, because I'm looking at a really old-fashioned chart, folks. I don't mean girls and women, I mean the feminine in terms of the esoteric. That's what we're really thinking about. So a really good day for that, actually, any spiritual pursuits. Mercury square Jupiter and Mercury retrograde as well. Important communications are really kind of at stake, and it's things that bother people a lot. Moral things, philosophical things, religious things come up. There tend to be debates, and international meetings tend to make the news as well. Now then, I wonder if my live psychic thing it counts as that. I think it probably does. It's a sort of an international meeting. Right, anyway, let's get the rest of this done before I start on that. Venus square Mars right now today. Passions and desires might create problems. You never know. Where there's a competitive situation where people are someone's trying to win, that could easily degenerate into a conflict. Mars sextile Neptune. The masculine side of things, not the male side, I mean the masculine, the less esoteric side of things, that's what I'm saying, is moving people to act out of kind of purely held ideology, what they strongly believe, and that means that leadership becomes quite dramatic, and people are trying to find like solutions that suit everyone. Not always going to go well when that happens, but that's the situation we've got today. It is still Mercury retrograde, of course, but you know, that's not too bad a thing, really. I've said this a few times in the last few days. I am a spiritualist medium, and myself and Sammy is the lady I work with when we serve the churches up and down Wales. We've both discovered that even when it's Mercury retrograde, we can get a good service out there and get it happening. It's supposed to be bad for spiritual communication, but I think the spiritual communication has the last laugh. And if you know your job really well, if you know what you're about really well, Mercury retrograde shouldn't give you any grief, really. It's going to show you things. That's the bottom line. It's like a mirror. Okay, friends. Well, that's it for today. I hope you have a brilliant week next week. I'll be in and around doing various kind of things on YouTube. Thanks everyone who was around on the Twig Brother channel. Go subscribe to Twig Brother if you haven't yet, because it's all happening there. I'm telling you. The live psychic mediumship and the cards and the crystals and everything. I really enjoyed that last night. I had the crystal ball out and everything. It was a blast. So thank you very much everyone who was involved in that. Also, big thanks Nicola Parrington, who's a big help in the chat there, helping it to flow smoothly. Give me a thumbs up, my friends, if you've enjoyed this, please. If you haven't enjoyed it, you know what to do. The subscribe button is down there somewhere. It's like a red rectangle, says subscribe. Hit that and tap the bell next to it. You'll get all the notifications. You'll stay in the loop. And I'm really looking forward to having you with me on the journey, because we're kind of all together in this thing. Have a great Sunday, friends. Mwah. See you soon. Goodbye.